Welcome back, guys. As you all probably know, Overwatch just released its biggest update in the last 6 years last week, and I have to talk about it. So, this update came after the announcement on the 4th of February at the Overwatch Spotlight, which revealed quite a lot of big and important news for 2026 in Overwatch. The first thing I want to talk about is the removal of the 2 from the name. As you all probably know, Overwatch originally released in 2016, and it was a very, very popular hero shooter. The game had amassed quite a large player base, and everybody was really in love with the game all the way up until 2019. Like, those 3 years back then in 2016 to 2019, the game was absolutely on fire. Every single update was very successful, and I feel like everybody was expecting the next new hero or the next new event with extremely high hopes. So you can imagine the surprise when back in 2019 we got the reveal of Overwatch 2. Now this reveal was a very big and powerful thing because you had the player base at the time who expected this new game, this new sequel, so to say, to be a massive improvement on the original. We knew we would be getting gameplay changes, but we also were expecting to get a lot of new story content and a lot of new characters, which, as you all probably know by now, didn't exactly go according to plan. Overwatch 2 released in 2022, and it came out with no story content, very few optimizations, out of which most of the changes were perceived as either just okay or even bad, and only 3 new heroes. Yeah, the game came out, the very highly anticipated game that we had been waiting for, I think 3 years, right? Came out with only 3 new heroes. That was it. That was the big change. Were people happy? Obviously not. So Overwatch 2 since then has been going on a pretty downward spiral. But I think the biggest problem the game suffered from was the change in monetization. So obviously Overwatch 2 launched as a completely free-to-play game, which meant that they had to change their monetization scheme from the normal paid access to the game to battle passes and item shops and just extremely expensive cosmetics that old players were not used to buying, right? Back in the day we had the loot boxes, which everybody really loved, and everybody would wait for events just to get those special event loot boxes, which they could then open to hopefully get the skins they really wanted. But with Overwatch 2's release, the loot boxes were no more, and we just got absolutely disgusting monetization system, which basically meant you would probably not get any skins for like months of playing. It was absolutely horrendous. Overwatch 2 kept releasing heroes. That being said, the game was in a constant decline, and nobody really loved it. So what happened on the 4th of February was game breaking. They first of all removed the 2, which is more of a symbolic thing, so to speak, because realistically speaking, it makes no difference in the overall perspective of the game, but it's a nice change nonetheless, because I feel like mentally, a lot of us old players did kind of associate the game Overwatch 2 to being a bad thing. So now they removed the 2, it kind of helps a little bit with like this image that they have now. And the other big change that they confirmed is that we will be getting 10 heroes this year. And they launched this update last week with a total of 5 new characters. Now this was a very big and important moment because it really gave players, even me, a reason to return to the title. So the question on everybody's minds is Overwatch back? Now I do think the answer to this is kind of complicated, but let's start off by talking about the 5 new heroes. So first off, we have the tank role. In the tank role, we only got 1 new tank in the form of Domina. Domina is very similar to Symmetra, by the way, and this is going to be a complaint I'm going to have with all of these new heroes. They do all feel kind of cheap, and they do all feel kind of copied from other heroes. Because you have something like Domina, who is basically just a Symmetra, but a tank version. I don't necessarily dislike her playstyle. I do think she's kind of fun to use. She has this beam gun, which after you hold down the shoot button, ends up creating this one powerful burst, which I think is pretty fun to use. And definitely it's a pretty strong gun. Now, aside from this, her abilities are pretty standard. She has a shield that can be broken by segments. Kind of a weird decision, but I do think it's fun to play around. She has a pushback, which allows you to push your enemies backwards. Kind of cool as well. Another shard grenade. So not a lot of revolutionary ideas here, but it's a fun character to play overall. The kit is really cool, and she's pretty strong. But once again, I do have this issue that I feel like it's a very similar character to Symmetra in some regards. Like, especially when you're just like playing on screen, it really looks like Symmetra. Her gun is very very similar. But aside from that, I do like that they're kind of taking ideas from multiple heroes and mixing them into these new ones. In the DPS role, we have two new characters. First of all, we have Emre, who is basically Soldier, but with a burst rifle. I don't know if he's necessarily the coolest character ever, but I gotta admit, he's kind of fun to play around. He's a burst rifle user. He has a sidearm, which gives him higher jump power as well as higher speed. He also has 2 grenades, and his ultimate is this thing where you go into the sky and you get like beams of damage. It's not necessarily a bad hero. I do have fun with him, but again, he feels very similar to other characters, just that he is a mix of them. Once again, Emre, I think, is a nice character to try out. Do I think he's revolutionary? Not necessarily, but I do like the fact that he was added to the game. The third character that we're going to talk about is the DPS Anran. Now, this one is where I feel like Overwatch did the most changes, so to speak. This character is very distinct from other characters. First of all, she has this thing which allows you to burn your enemies, and I think that's kind of fun to play around. Her main attack has 2 options. You can either shoot with the fans, which are very similar to Genji's shurikens, or you can right-click to shoot a fire burst, which will burn your enemies. This burn does last longer, and I think it's kind of fun to play with. Aside from this, her abilities are a dash, which I think is really cool to use. I don't know, I really had fun using it. And an ability which I feel like I don't really know exactly how it works, but what it does is once you activate it, you deal damage, but you kind of dodge all the attacks of your enemies. And it's a very cool ability to try out. Do I think Anran is fun to play with? Honestly, yes. I think she's very cool. Her design is very standard. She looks very similar to other characters that are already in the game. And I feel like there was even like some sort of a drama with her face being the same one as Kiriko's. So clearly nothing revolutionary on the design part. I do think it's a fun character that they added, and she does have a sort of uniqueness to her playstyle. In the support department, we also have 2 new heroes. First of all, Mizuki. Now this one I like the design of, but is he unique in his playstyle? Not necessarily. He's just kind of maybe like a better version of some other characters. So his main attack is just shooting some sort of shurikens, I think, at enemies. So it's pretty much just Genji's main attack. It's pretty strong. Not as strong as Genji, but it's still a good alternative. In terms of his healing powers, he has this radius of heal, which is very cool, and it does go pretty well with his playstyle of being very quick and on the move. Then he has a recall ability, which allows you to leave a recall spot on the map, and then you can run around and then get back to that place. It's a fun ability. Obviously, we already have this in Overwatch with characters like Tracer, but I gotta admit, I do like this one because it works a lot with his on-the-move playstyle of being a healer. And the 2 new supports that they added, both of them are very movement-heavy characters, and I love that. His other ability is this hat, which he can throw, which heals your teammates, and it kind of bounces off one another. It's a pretty cool idea, and I think it works nicely in, again, his playstyle. Overall, Mizuki is a cool character, but again, most of these ideas are being retconned from other characters, so there's not a lot of uniqueness here. He's just like a little bit of a better mix. And the last character, which I have to admit I think is the most unique, but at the same time the sloppiest design, is Jetpack Cat. Jetpack Cat is very popular. Everybody loves her. Everybody thinks it's going to be the new icon of Overwatch. Personally, I find it to be a cool idea, just that her design is so boring. It's literally just a cat in a jetpack. They could have done so much more to it, but they just went for the literal easiest thing possible. Do I think her kit is fun? Yeah, I do. This cat always floats around. You're in a jetpack, and it allows you to move a lot more freely around the terrain, which I think is very fun. At the same time, I do feel like your time in the match as this cat is going to be a lot more limited, to say so, because most of the time you will find yourself not being in combat and not even being attacked, because people will literally not notice you. Like, I cannot stress this enough. As Jetpack Cat, I literally did not get attacked for basically half a round. It was crazy. Her abilities are pretty simple. She has a healing burst, which is very standard for supports. She also has a boost ability, so to speak, which allows you to dash very quickly in certain directions and like move faster. It's a cool and very useful ability for getting around, because again, you're very small and you just float all over the place. So it works pretty neatly with her kit, and it plays into the mobility that I was telling you about. And her signature ability is this ability to pick up up your teammates. And in her case, you can basically lift your teammates around and just throw them in different places. I can imagine this being the funnest part of her kit because you can like just drop a diva, which is ulting on enemies. So there's definitely a lot of things you can do with her playstyle. Do I think she's going to be a crazy character? Not particularly, but I can definitely see it being very useful. With that being said, Jetpack Cat, again, I think is the most unique new kit, but at the same time, her design is just not that wow. So what does that leave us with? We have 5 characters, which I think all are either okay or pretty good actually, in terms of just their strengths, but their designs are pretty like a majority of them just look like they're copies of other characters, and if they don't look like they're a copy of other characters, they just look very dull. Take Jetpack Cat into account. I hope Overwatch will try to remedy this, but at the same time, I do think it's a direction worth exploring, because if they were to put in slightly less effort into making all the characters look spectacular and just make them more standard or formulaic, but make them more varied, just like give us different kits, I think people would be happy with it. Look at Marvel Rivals again. They release 2 new heroes every season, and not all heroes look necessarily that distinct, but the fact that there's this variety of gameplay just helps a lot more with the game's resistance and the game's life. And I feel like Overwatch could take a lesson from their competitors here and try to give us more content and give players in general just more things to do, aside from tedious events which offer very shitty rewards. With that being said, I do think Overwatch is going towards a nice direction. I don't know where it's headed, and I don't know what's going to happen in the near future, but it's cool to see that they're finally trying something. They're trying to get their players back, and to some extent it's working. There is a larger player base on Overwatch now, so there is somebody who's hearing this and it's enjoying them. So to answer the question, is Overwatch back? The answer is very simple for me. No, I don't think Overwatch is back. I feel like Overwatch is slowly going towards a better direction. I don't think Overwatch 1 will ever come back because it's a game that just completely died when they switched over to free-to-play, and I don't think the old Overwatch model would even work in free-to-play, but it's cool that they're trying new things. They're trying to give us more content, and they're trying to focus a little more on the story content. I've seen that they even added a whole tab about the story, so it's fun to see them still giving us maybe even a little direction of what they want to do, but still I don't think the game is in the state that we old players wanted Overwatch 2 to be. There's still not that much story content. You still can't play missions. There's no story mode, and the game just isn't in the state maybe I was expecting it to be. I do think it's a good update. We got 5 characters and they are showing signs of improvement, but do I think this will last long term? It's up for debate. It really depends on how the team at Blizzard decides to handle these new players that are coming in with this update. I feel like if they were to just keep doing what they used to do with Overwatch 2, but just give us more heroes, they would slowly fail. So there still are big changes that they need to take, but for now, this is a good sign and a good step in the right direction, and I'm pretty happy with it. So if you haven't tried it out, be sure to try out the new Overwatch update. It's pretty fun and it's worth your time. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below on these changes as well as the future of the game. And anyways, thank you for watching, subscribe for more, and bye-bye.